Go.
Alright.
Not bad for a primary. Finally, we've been able to get every catalyst for Barrow-Dyad in the game, and while the last one was not a fan favorite, but this weapon is an absolute monster. To cut to the point quickly, Barrow-Dyad is the exotic SMG, a primary weapon from this episode in the exotic mission for Heresy. Cheeky future edit, I forgot to mention the catalyst. Let me put that into the video now real quick. As for which catalyst I chose for Barrow-Dyad, now the unanimous #1 is of course going to be target lock, specifically because we're doing single target boss damage. So if you have that, absolutely put that on. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. You can literally just use this weapon with no catalysts on at all and still do great damage. But if you want to choose something besides target lock, because you haven't gotten that yet, the second best one would probably be high impact reserves. And it can get a perk called Taken Ambition when you do the Path of Ambition on the slab. Taken Ambition states, blights generated increase the longer your weapon remains on a target, and blighted seekers burrow into the target and explode. So essentially, you just use your mag to shoot into a boss, then you reload, and when you reload, your first few shots are going to be blighted seeker rounds, which do massive damage. How much damage? Glad you asked. I'm just going to give you numbers straight up, and you can make your own judgment call, even though some people will just not believe me. So, first up, the SMG with seeker rounds, when you proc it for the panic response, you do roughly 150,000 damage every time that you do that. To compare it to Bolt Charge, since people are going to say, well, Bolt Charge does more, Bolt Charge actually does roughly 99,000 damage when you proc it. So the SMG, a primary, is already beating Bolt Charge when Bolt Charge is juiced this season with Flashover, which we are including in this. Next is T-Crash. It's doing the damage. Well, yes and no. The build is catered around getting Bolt Charge and T-Crash multiple times in one damage phase, but even getting multiple T-Crashes, it's not doing all of the damage, because a juiced Thunder Crash with Curus and the artifact mods will do roughly 1.5 mil. Without Curus, because we're using Peacekeepers in most of the clips here, without Curus, you're going to get something like under a mil. Maybe a mil if you're lucky. So, hypothetically, let's count the Curus T-Crash plus the 2 Peacekeeper T-Crashes in the Puppet clip. You're looking at something like 3.5 mil damage, if you're being generous. Now, I did 8 million, so that means 4.5 million of the damage came from Bolt Charge and the Seeker rounds from Barrow-Dyad, which again, is a primary weapon. That's ridiculous. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the build. So it's incredibly simple and takes almost no effort to get massive damage. All you gotta do is have a barricade for the boss damage phase, and then have Barrow-Dyad and Peacekeepers equipped. Now for those of you that have never used Peacekeepers in your life because you value your sanity and don't play PvP, Peacekeepers increase the damage of SMGs against combatants the longer you remain on a target. You can also reload the ammo of your SMG when it's stowed, but we're not going to be using that. We're just doing this for the damage specifically. Speaking of damage, we're also going to be using Triple Strand Surge on our Peacekeepers to increase the damage of Barrow-Dyad. Also, I want to mention the optional part of this, where you can start a damage phase with Curus to get massive damage off your first T-Crash onto the boss, and then switch to Peacekeepers for the rest of the damage phase to buff the damage of Dyad. You don't have to do that though, it's completely optional, and if you stay on just Peacekeepers, you'll be fine. In fact, here's a clip of me just using Peacekeepers with Barrow-Dyad with no super, and, well, you'll see the damage for yourself. Oh yeah, this is fine. This is totally normal for a primary weapon to be doing this. This is normal. I'm sure the Divinity is doing all the damage, in fact.
We're spitting right now.
I think I've made my point. The weapon is great in its own right. Moving on, let's talk about the rest of the kit. Let's go with our abilities next. So for our abilities and aspects, there's nothing major here that you won't expect. It's pretty standard, but just for the sake of telling people what I have on, ability-wise, I have Rally Barricade for Bolt Charge spam. I have Thunderclap for my melee, although you won't be using this in the actual boss damage phases. And then Pulse Grenade for just the best damage, plus jolting a target when you throw it. In the aspects, again, there is no surprise here. It's Storm's Keep to buff our Bolt Charge spam, and then Knockout, as it's just incredibly stupid. You punch something, you get your health back instantly, you become amplified, that helps you with Bolt Charge, etc. Now for the fragments, you could change some of these up if you'd like. They're not set in stone, but I will say there's two that I think should just be mandatory for most people, and we're going to start with those first. So we have Spark of Resistance, which is giving you more DR when you're surrounded by combatants. You want to have this on for most bosses in the game. Think like Puppet, Heffend, etc. So it just gives you extra DR to survive while you're in your barricade. Then we have Spark of Frequency. Now the first half of this effect we don't care about, but at the very bottom it states, while amplified, you gain increased stacks of Bolt Charge from all sources, and that's the main part that we want for this fragment. Then we have Spark of Shock, which is straightforward. Your arc grenades jolt targets, so you throw your pulse, you jolt the target, you get extra damage. Pretty straightforward. And then lastly, Spark of Focus. After sprinting for a short time, your class ability regeneration is increased, so this is just another way to get your barricade back faster, along with some mods in your armor. Speaking of the mods, let's go over the artifact mods real quick that you should have on. First up is Unraveling Orbs. So this states, picking up an Orb of Power grants your weapons Unraveling rounds. This is key for another mod we're going to talk about in a second, but the boost for this is Strand weapons deal increased damage to Strand debuff targets. So that's a damage buff to your Dyad, plus this second mod, which is to Shreds. And the boost for this states Unraveling projectiles deal increased damage, so again, your Dyad will get increased. And for the other two mods, we have Flashover, as most of you already know. When you gain max stacks of Bolt Charge, you become amplified, and also your lightning bolts do increase damage. Now, the point about becoming amplified is actually important because the last mod we're talking about is Limit Break. Some people don't understand this, so let me just explain. While casting your super while you're critically wounded, or have an elemental buff matching your super, in this case Arc, then you deal increased damage with your super for a short duration. So, for Flashover, when you pop your barricade, it will give you Bolt Charge, and it will give you Amplified. Both of these are Arc buffs, which means they will instantly make your Limit Break live, and give you 30% more damage with your super, just like that, for your Thunder Crash. One last note, some of you are going to ask, why don't you have Defibrillating Blast on to heal yourself? And the answer is, you can only have 2 mods on in the last column, and I chose the damage mods over Defibrillating, because a well can just help me survive very easily on its own. One last note for artifact mods, make sure your Tome of Want is live when you're fighting bosses, so these bonuses here are always going to be live. All you got to do is just do this, then pick a weapon, the exotic thing if you want, doesn't matter, and then you activate your Tome of Want like so, and then bam, your bonuses are now live. With all that said, the gameplay loop is incredibly simple. You pop your barricade, you then immediately Thunder Crash the boss to get your super off, and then go back to your DPS platform, at which point you're just going to be holding M1 or whatever your button on your controller is to fire your weapon. Barrow-Dyad will unload its mag onto the boss, then you reload it, and then the secret rounds will come out, burrow into the boss, do a ton of bonus damage, and then you keep repeating the process until you get a second barricade. Once that happens, you pop your barricade again, and when you get your second super, immediately go use it on the boss, and then rinse repeat the process with Barrow-Dyad. You keep doing this until either the boss is dead, or the damage phase is over. All you have to do is just hold M1 and pop your super and pop your barricade. It's genuinely just that simple. Finally, our armor mods. So these are nothing special, so I'm going to speed run through them. Helmet. We have Dynamo. This reduces our super cooldown when I use my class ability near targets, so I get a cooldown on my super, and I get a little bit of energy if there's an enemy around me. It's just free super energy to get multiple supers in a phase. Then we have Strand Siphon, pretty straightforward. Dyad kill stuff, make orbs, etc. And the last mod is Font of Wisdom to increase our intellect, so again, we get our super back faster. In our gloves, we have 1 copy of Bolstering Detonation. It grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade. So you pop your barricade, you throw your nade, you get a little bit of energy back to get your next barricade. And then the other 2 mods are Strand Loader, just to reload our Barrow-Dyad faster for getting our Seekers off. In my chest, it's, again, nothing special. 1 of each resist for endgame content. It's not like you need to reserve mods for your primary SMG anyway. In our boots, like I mentioned earlier, 3 Strand Weapon Surges to increase the damage of Barrow-Dyad. And then in the class item, I have 1 copy of Time Dilation to just extend the armor charge timer on our boots, 1 copy of Distribution to reduce all ability cooldowns, including our super, when we use our barricade near targets, and then 1 copy of Bomber to reduce the grenade cooldown when using your class ability. Now, I will mention that this could be replaced for powerful attraction, so that when you barricade, you will pick up orbs around you, which again will increase your super energy back to your next super. And that is the build. It genuinely, I think, is the easiest build in the game to do massive damage. But you guys let me know what you think of the build in the comments below. And speaking of below, if you want to try out this build on your own, I will have a dim link down in the description. And while you're down there, check out my other socials as well. It's all free. Anyway, jokes aside, if you did enjoy the build or the video, please consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or comment below as well. If you don't know what to leave as a comment, you can leave Barrow-Dyad as the comment. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.